You are the flame of the chalice. You dare to be seen, to flicker and dance your beautiful, vulnerable dance. You have come alive to the possibility of the world. Your warmth embraces those around you. Your light illuminates our sacred purpose. You are the flame in the chalice. You burn brightly because you are safe and held, contained by our beloved community. You sit deeply and mysteriously rooted in our shared wisdom and consciousness. You are part of a constellation, a single light emerging and forever embraced by the collective brightness of our being. Words from Lizzie Kingston Harrison. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday service, and I'm grateful for your presence here, for those who've braved the typical Mancunian sunny day, as well as those who are perhaps watching or listening from the warmth of your homes or wherever it may be. And however you have come to this space and time, be it a time of joy and celebration, to laugh with one another, a chance to sit and cry and shed tears and sorrow with one another, a time to hear with one another a few words of wisdom, or perhaps a time to connect or to rest with the divine. Whatever it is you've come seeking, I hope you will find it, as well as a warm community. I was going to make a very quick and brief announcement, which is that our tea and coffee, and I'll mention this again later, is not going to be in the Percival Suite. It's going to be upstairs. If the Percival Suite floor has just had it's been redone. It looks gorgeous, but we're not allowed in there. So please try to avoid going into the Percival Suite. And I'll make more announcements on that later. But just if for some reason you need to leave our space to go somewhere else, make that somewhere else, not the Percival Suite. So we lit our chalice with those beautiful words of Lizzie Kingston Harrison. We turn now to Kate Taylor for our call to worship. Welcome to the circle of caring, the circle of cradling, the circle of this congregation of love, the circle of the world and the universe. May our light be a symbol of life, freely given and constantly nurtured, reflected in the love we give to those who depend on us, who look to us for warmth and comfort. May we all know what it is to care. May we all know what it is to cradle life in our arms with love for all the world, and especially for those who need us. Amen. Our first hymn by Stephanie Bisbee is Ours is a Caravan. It's a new hymn for us. It's printed in the order of worship rather than appearing in the hymn book. It goes to a tune which we don't sing that often, but I think most of us will know, O Wale Wale. But I will play through it completely once. I'm afraid you have me on the piano. Very thankful to Hal Morrell for the recorded music for today. We are in that process of securing a new Sunday musician, which should be in place by September. So. Thank you. This really was an excuse just for myself to tickle the ivories. When we got the new piano, I was really excited to be able to give it a go, and I didn't actually have a really proper chance for a few weeks. Something kept preventing me, and then finally I was able to come in a bit early on a Sunday and have a go. But let us now turn to a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend Matthew Smith. This is followed by our covenant, which is printed in your order of worship and will appear online for those at home. But first, these words. Spirit of life and love, in this moment let us be conscious of the free gifts of air to breathe and solid ground beneath our feet. Conscious of these natural realities, let us likewise recall the importance of interpersonal trust in our lives. While being open to others carries its risk, we know our hearts will shrink and wisen if we live mainly by suspicion. As persons of inherent worth and dignity, each and every one of us, let us claim the right to demand justice and accountability from those in positions of power. Let us also be willing to open ourselves to love and trust. For our own dear sakes, there is good in the world, and there is good in people. Sometimes we need to look deeply, but it is there. We know there are tens of millions of hearts yearning for the same things that we do: fairness, love, care for the earth, and compassion. As we reach out, let us have resolute faith that we will connect with those true hearts, the companions we really need for life's journey. So it is that we recognize and celebrate this hard but invaluable work of trusting and reaching out in our personal lives and in the practice of spiritual community. May it ever be so. Amen. Let us turn now to our covenant. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. So who here likes naps? That's going to be the theme for the rest of the service. I like naps as well. I think university was when it first sort of hit me, when you have the odd afternoon without a class and actually managed to fall asleep there. And then when Thomas was born, the instruction from the midwives was always to sleep when they sleep. And I found that very helpful. And so much that I carried on. He had a nap yesterday afternoon, and I had a lovely nap yesterday afternoon too. But so who here, when you have a nap, you have like a really long, deep nap, you wake up and you almost forget who you are. Or perhaps you forget where you are, or you forget what's going on. And it's like there's a fog, and it doesn't, hopefully doesn't last long, but it dispels fairly quickly, and then you are awakened to sort of your life and everything in it. Well, this is a story just about that, about a nap. It's rooted in, of course, what will be a well-known story by the Greek storyteller Aesop, of which I'm sure we're all familiar. And it is our protagonist, at the start of our story, our telling of this story, our protagonist is waking up from a very long nap. And just like we discussed, they wake up and they're not sure where they are, almost who they are or what's going on. And as they wake up, they're stretching and they're grateful, they're feeling refreshed, they're feeling energized, and they're beginning to remember some of the things from the most recent past. Things they remember, firstly, is having an argument with a tortoise about who is faster. And then making a bet as to who could be faster by having a race. And then their memory comes back a little more, and they remember the specific sort of trail that was set out. They remember all the animals gathering around to see them set off. And they, our protagonist, who happens to be a hare, has realized that having done so well in the race, had decided to take a nap. But there's one other thing that this hare remembers, which is the position of the sun. When the hare lay down, the position was fairly early in the day. And when it wakes up, it's much, much later on, significantly later than it expected. And it's putting 2 and 2 together until it eventually realizes that it has overslept, and it still has to complete the race. So it looks over, because it had slept so near to the finish line, it looks over just in time to see the tortoise run across. Well, not run across because it's the tortoise, but see the tortoise plod across and win. So it's just very embarrassing for the hare, isn't it? And it goes over, it crosses the finish line, but there was no joy for it in securing second place in a two-animal race. So it's deeply embarrassed by this, and it decides firstly to hide itself in its burrow, and it finds a warren that it can sort of slip into and stay the night without anyone disturbing it. And in the morning, it sets off. It sets off because it's so ashamed, it's so saddened and almost sickened by having that nap and by missing out on this race. It goes out for new climbs, for a new environment, to have a new life. And in this sort of, when it sort of undertakes this, it happens upon an old farmhouse that has an untended garden, still with some food and vegetation that it can see, that it can eat and sustain itself. So it spends some time there, and as it's sitting there, it's beginning to reflect and it thinks, well, this isn't so bad. It is. Yes, it certainly was awful that I lost that race, but here I have some pleasant food. I can enjoy a bit of the sun and the wind when it comes about. Yeah, I don't have much to worry about here, do I? And it ate as much as it wanted, and then it fell asleep again in the afternoon. This hare is beginning to really enjoy its naps, isn't it? And this went on for some time. It would wake up and it would nibble a bit of food. It would explore the sort of surrounding countryside. At its leisure, it began to realize that it didn't have to be the fastest hare around. It didn't have to be the fastest animal. It could just simply enjoy the fruits of the world without presumption of trying to be faster than anything or anyone else. And this carried on for a time until it eventually felt sort of a bit more secure in itself. And its thoughts began to go back to the forest and to the other animals and wonder, well, I wonder what they're up to now. Old Badger, what's he doing? And that tortoise, is the tortoise still, lauding it over about being the fastest animal in the forest? So it finally makes a resolution to return. And when it does, it finds that the animals have just pretty much picked up from their lives and carried on. It hosts a meal with some of the food that it had brought from this sort of abandoned house. And one of the animals says, "Oh, do you remember that race so long ago that you lost?" Which felt a little bit like needling it in, I suppose. But the rabbit was good-humored about it and a bit humble. He said, yes, I suppose I do. And the other animal said, "Oh, yes, we feasted off that story for ages." And the rabbit thought, well, I'm okay with that. I'm enjoying things. I'm taking things at a leisure. I don't have to be the fastest rabbit around. Perhaps it is okay to just take things slow and steady, just like the tortoise had. And all of this was because the rabbit had a good, long nap. Thank you. You now have a chance to share your stories, your joys and sorrows, your trials and your triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, please come forward and light a candle. If you have a few words to say, please come to the microphone so those who are listening online and those who are using the loop system may be able to hear. If you are online, please type into the chat box and we will read your message out. You're invited, of course, to light a candle in silence if you wish, and as always, if you wish to remain seated, holding your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. So I would like to light a candle for Catherine and Thomas. Both have been unwell this past week. Thomas is slightly on the mend and Catherine following behind, so I'm sure they'll both be okay, hopefully soon in due course. But a candle of thoughts and love and care for them.
Well, thank you, Cody, for describing the life of the retired. It was, yes, like my life. Mine is just a candle of the sheer joy of my life at the moment, which is just wonderful, and how nice it is to be here with you this Sunday. Bless you all. Thank you.
This is going to embarrass him enormously, but this is a candle for Robin, who is feeling a bit better today, which is wonderful, especially as we are off tomorrow, taking the family to York for 4 days. So, good.
As Sonia may have mentioned last week, we are taking the family to York for a few days this coming week, and really I'm lighting a candle on behalf of all the adults involved, because with 2 teenagers in the entourage, there's scope for plenty of mishaps, misunderstandings, tantrums, and that's just the adults. So on the one hand, we're looking forward to it very, very much. On the other hand, we'll be glad to sort of emerge unscathed come Friday afternoon.
This is a candle for all of my friends who are teachers, who have just begun their summer holidays. I think they've earned a rest.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us sing now our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 11, Blessed Spirit of My Life, by Shelley Jackson Denham, hymn number 11. Our reading today comes from Carl Scovell, who was an American minister, I think mainly based in New Hampshire. But beyond his sort of settled ministry, he also had a sort of radio pulpit of which he broadcast, I think, weekly for pretty much the whole of his career, and set a sort of collection of the best of material that he'd produced over that whole those decades. So this is entitled, Take a Hike. When I've been under pressure and the pressure is getting to me, I know it's time to get out my boots and my pack and a bag of raisins and drive my old Volvo north to the land of the Great Spirit and the black flies and the 100 trails and the logging roads that snake their secret way through the thick green woods up the flanks of the White Mountains. I need to head for a summit where the wind and the light and the view are waiting to welcome the lonely walker who has no other purpose than to be there for an hour or two. It was a cloudy and threatening day when I left at 6 one morning for such a hike, and rain was promised. I was feeling about as mean as a preacher can feel when he's not been getting as well as giving. I stopped at the Concord Hojo's for a cup of coffee and glanced through the guidebook. Well, I thought, I'll climb Hancock. I haven't been there for 14 years, and it's only 10 miles up and back. The last time I climbed Hancock, I had one thing in mind, to get to the top as fast as I could. At that point in my life, I was bent on climbing the 47 mountains over 4,000 feet in New Hampshire, and Hancock was number 28 on the list. I don't think I saw a thing on the trip. It wasn't a hike, it was a blitz, up and down, in and out. That's all I cared about. This trip was different. I sauntered up the trail, not caring if I reached the top or not. I looked at the 1,000 shades of green and lea and moss. I drank from streams, indifferent to the perils of Giardia, and noted good camping sites. I admired the great rocks dropped in the valley by glaciers centuries before. I munched on my sandwich and raisins and sang little chants to the pebbles on the path and listened to the myriad voices in my mind. And I realized that I wasn't just hiking, I was meditating. I wasn't just walking up a mountain, I was walking into my mind, into that inner world that we all lose touch with when we get too busy attending to people and work. Just as in sleep, where we must dream to stay sane, so in waking we must stay in touch with that world of intuition and fantasy that we call the unconscious. The Church thinks of the unconscious as the realm of the Holy Spirit. And we all must do this. Some by reading novels, some by walking on the seashore, some by meditating, some by gardening, some by listening to music, some by going to art galleries, some by daydreaming, some by talking to psychotherapists, some by painting, some by playing. We all need to be in touch with the world of myth and image, mood and feeling. That world where God speaks to us not in the simple language of fact and morality, but in the strange and intricate tongue of vision, emotion, and narrative. This world, too, is divine and needs as much attention from us as the world of numbers, theorems, and headlines. Where there is no vision, the people perish, says Holy Scripture. Where people lose touch with that world of inner truth, they die from violence of unchecked reason. Do not hesitate to take your journey into that strange world in which lies your salvation. God still meets us in strange places, and the joy God offers us, we must not deny. Carl Scoville's Take a Hike. And so let us have a period of meditation, starting with these words from Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. And so let us enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Let us now turn to our next hymn, number 28 in the Purple Book, Nancy Dorian's Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design, hymn number 28. I spoke recently about the chapel being a place for forgiveness and imperfection, a place where people can misstep and still feel welcomed. We live in a society with immense pressures to look perfect, to act perfect, to say the perfect thing. Jobs have to be fulfilling, otherwise you are failing at life. Relationships have to be in sync all the time, otherwise you are failing at love. There are innumerable pressures, external and internal. And the fact we don't pop at this pressure is sometimes nothing short of a miracle. So I hold tight to the fact that this can be a place for people to be imperfect. It can also be a place for respite from this frenzied world, not just restoring us through grace and forgiveness, but actually being the resting place for our souls. We can sit down and we can let out a deep, deep sigh to set down the weight of our backpacks and let our shoulders readjust, to let our feet untense, our legs recover their blood and energy. The hope, as I begin every service, is that people will gain something that they need here. What it is, I cannot really say. I don't know the inner workings of your hearts, nor the anxieties sitting in your minds. I don't know what fateful words God might want you to hear, or what will resonate with you through nature's serendipity. But I trust the process. I bring some words that, in all honesty, were written for me, with the hope that they might be helpful for you too. So whatever you need during this service, I hope it is received. And this could be a soothing balm. It could be that you are seen and loved. It could be a challenge to uplift the spirit and engage with the world. It could be a sense of unity, where you find yourself between the stars and the caterpillars and feel at peace. Or it could be a nap. Hear me out. For there is always sometimes a little mirth if someone is gently lulled into sleep during the sermon. I think I'm supposed to be offended by it, but in all honesty, I'm not. I've seen it happen under my watch at another church. In fact, I was a little weirdly pleased when it happened. I heard it once that you could consider a city safe when you feel able to fall asleep on a park bench. And I'm not sure how true this maxim is now with the increasing criminalization of homelessness and loitering. But just as this is a place set aside for imperfection, it can also be a place for rest. And not just a rest of the spirit, but of the body. So along with all the other needs that I hope you will find fulfilled, perhaps you do simply just need a nap. And if that is the case, may these words direct you off to dreamland. And join us again when we start the final hymn. Sometimes, when the world's challenges are overwhelming, we just need to keep calm and take a nap. Like the hare, it might just give us a fresh take on the world at large and reorient our priorities towards a more satisfying and enriching way of being. But not always. Sometimes our mind is too rushed, too chaotic for such idle pursuits. We find ourselves running headfirst into assumptions, catastrophizing, descending into depths heretofore unknown. When these anxieties assault us, we may feel the last thing to do is to sit and wait for their arrival. Some may take up running, literally, or jogging, or other pursuits. For myself, going on long cycle rides has the ability to clear the mind. I knew the troubles and the difficulties that I was facing would still be there upon my return, but in navigating the roads and pushing myself to a limit, I would be emptied internally, and in a good way, a way that allowed some spiritual waters to fill me up and help me carry on amidst my challenges. This is not to suggest it was all smooth sailing, that I was some image of beatific transcendence on my bicycle. There was plenty of swearing, too. And slightly, I suspect this was the case of the sages of old, much that is not recorded in the books of history. Scoville remarks that he needs to take a hike because he was turning into what he describes as a mean minister, his resources having been drained, and he needed some self-care that would enlarge his heart once again. Returning to nature, taking steps that he had taken before, but now without the pressure driving him to the top, he was able to feel that clearing of his mind in a good way and place himself in an environment well poised to be refreshed by a source of energy when he communes with nature. Sometimes you need to keep calm and take a hike, not to outpace your troubles, but to find a place where they can be safely emptied and you can be refilled. And we will find this place not in the destination, but on the way, dropping our worries not as breadcrumbs, but as the clothes for those heading off to the beach. You'll know well the expression, keep calm and carry on. And will, I am sure, have seen the innumerable variations available on coffee cups, pillows, mouse pads, posters, and all manner of consumer paraphernalia. So I propose these two: keep calm and have a nap, as well as keep calm and take a hike. And I'm sure actually both have already been produced and copywritten. I'm sure I should have looked up who I need to thank in some form for those words. I propose we keep those two to remind us that our society, as presently structured, is unsustainable and deeply energy-consuming, both in the sense of what we take from the earth, as well as what society demands of us. Two examples of many that we can look to regain some energy and perspective. There was an announcement this week that St. Peter's House was closing. And for the unfamiliar, this is the chaplaincy center for the universities along the Oxford corridor for Manchester, Manmet, and the RNCM. I was shocked when I heard the news, and I'm sure with time the decision will make some sense, or logic at least. But it does remind me that these places of respite, of imperfection, of humanness, places that guarantee our worth when we fail at life or fail an exam. These places are not guaranteed. We need to ensure that they are, for us as well as the wider community. For those who step in occasionally, or are those who are with us for a short while before life whisks them away. I am grateful for this space, for the calm that it brings me, for the joy that I see in it, and hope that I never take that for granted. But I am aware that, like all institutions, it exists with some measure of robustness. I hope we can continue to keep it going for those who need it, need something from it. Not hope like some idle wishing, but hope as in a constructed faith that we build over and over again. When we set foot in here, we can help make it this welcoming building for the imperfect, the tired, and the pained. And it is available for us as well when we need to draw from its resources. Amen. A few notices then before we sing our final hymn. If you're in need of pastoral care, please speak with me, or you can write to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. Although in a moment I'm going to say actually that I am away this week, so there will be an announcement sent out tomorrow. The Reverend Kate Brady McKenna is managing pastoral emergencies while I'm away for the next week, and her contact details will be there for those who are facing some emergency. Thanks as well to Tina, our student minister, who's taking our Wednesday service, and William, who will be taking our Sunday service. And we're grateful as well for all the volunteers who help with the chapel. If you're interested in volunteering, we have a sign-up sheet, or speak with me if there's some area that you wish you could contribute to. We're grateful as well for any donations that can assist the mission of the chapel. You can donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester, or email me about setting up a standing order. And if you're here in person, we have a retiring collection along with envelopes if you're a UK taxpayer, so we may claim gift aid. And if you're a regular in-person giver, we have an envelope scheme for those who don't want to fill in their forms every week. Our Friday lunchtime recital is this Friday, the 28th, and it's going to feature the Brown Mountain Lightning Bugs. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. They describe themselves as folk-ish. It's sort of primarily folk with a bit of ish added to it, a bit of contemporary folk, I suppose is another way of describing it. That's Friday the 28th at 1 p.m. They're flying all the way from the States, so please do join us if you're able, so we can all sort of celebrate their music. It's always free entry, but we're grateful for any donations that go to the artists to recognize their time, talent, and energy. And then the 6th of August is after the service from about 12 to 1. There is a memorial marking the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's going to be in the Peace Gardens over in Lincoln Square on Brasenose Street. That's 12 o'clock Sunday the 6th, and you're all invited to that. Are there any announcements from the congregation? Like I said before, our tea and coffee is not going to be in the Percival Suite. Please do not go in the Percival Suite. It will be in the, what was formerly, we sort of call them the apartments, the sort of Jane Barraclough Suite. So if you do not know your way there, find someone who does. I know it's, we're all familiar with this space, but it actually is a bit more labyrinthine the further into the building you go. Let us then sing our final hymn in the Purple Book, number 198, We'll Build a Land, by Carolyn McDade, hymn number 198. to Alvin for the IT. Thank you to Sonia for these flowers, and for you and Robin for helping to set up. We haven't discussed who's doing the tea and coffee. It might be a group effort. Thank you to whoever helps along with that. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. And a thank you, as I said, to Hal Morel for their music this morning. We close with words of the Terma Collective. May my feet rest firmly on the ground. May my head touch the sky. May I see clearly. May I have the capacity to listen. May I be free to touch. May my words be true. May my heart and mind be open. May my hands be true. May my heart and mind be open. My hands be empty to fill the need. My arms be open to others. My gift be revealed to me, so I may return that which has been given, completing the great circle. Amen.
Yeah, no, I'm okay.